looking well. GM, good to see you again. How are you?
You too, Matt. Always good to see you, buddy.
Cool.
Let's do
Is it cold still?
it. It's snowing out there. Yeah, yes, it's freezing.
All right, we're going to go for the same time as the same style as before. I got my black bag,
Oh
and
no.
no
Go
no idea what's in it. I'm actually forgetting the things I've written down now, which is makes it more
Ooh,
interesting for me. You know.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So this one is, I would say, a very typical kind of, I would say, almost a Buddhist type question. Certainly, there's many Buddhist answers, which is around suffering. So,
Uh,
is suffering a path to awakening? And you could just say yes,
mm,
and we finished the we, we finished. But I'd love to dig this one apart because I think much of the world look as suffering as the nightmare of life, and it is difficult. But yeah, love to hear your reflections on suffering as a path to awakening, or not as a path to awakening.
Suffering is only a path to awakening in the same way that if you decide to go for a bungee jump, and when you're standing there on the edge of the cliff or wherever you're going to jump from, and they've tied the rubber bands around your feet and they go 3, 2, 1, go, and you just don't have the balls to jump. So what do? They push you off. And then when you finish bouncing around and screaming and little bits of poop coming out of your bum because you're so terrified, what's the first thing you do? You want to run back up and do it again now. And all of that excitement and joy and everything else only comes because some bastard pushed you off because you couldn't do it yourself. In the same way, I'm sorry, but this is just the way I speak.
No, it's good. No, don't worry about it. It's anything
so,
goes. It's all good.
so in the same way, let's pick one that we all know about: death row. You got people on death row. More people on death row end up having spiritual enlightenments and out of body experiences and astral journeys than most monks because they are terrified. They are locked up in a room 24/7. They're going to be exterminated, and they are left in a room with their thoughts of being exterminated and what they've done in the world, and they are in so much misery and horror purely out of survival.
Hmm.
The brain will throw them out of the body, anything to get away from this misery, and they leave their body. And of course, once you leave your body, you don't take your brain with you, you don't take your thoughts with you. You are that beautiful, pure, loving, pristine mind that entered that baby the day that that person was born, and they have an enlightenment. That's how, but I wouldn't suggest it as a way. It's good food. You get 3 meals a day out of it, but that's the only upside.
You just reminded me of a story then, actually, that I heard some time ago. So I may not get it exactly right on, but it was from a monk, and it was about counselling and that's right. It was counselling Vietnam veterans, and it was
Mm,
about a person who had been in a situation of torture for a long time, and obviously, not enough to kill the person, but enough to just put them in a state of heightened anxiety for, I think, for many years.
I've
And
been there.
when they came out of that at first, when they had the opportunity to be comfortable and looked after, that initial situation was more painful than being in the situation they've been in, because they had
Mm,
created a resiliency and defense mechanism to deal with the consistent situation they were in, which I thought was psychologically, yeah. I mean, does that make sense to you, that kind of reaction? And I
oh
mean,
yeah.
it's obviously not a nice story, but it's interesting. That's obviously not about awakening, or maybe that is what is on the path there. But yeah.
All right. Let's get back to the original question you just asked. If you're not in a horrible situation, if you're not on death row or anything like that, and we're talking about rising above misery, let's say the misery of leprosy back in a day before penicillin, I'm going back to Siddhartha here.
Okay.
Very, very quick story. You probably already know it. When Siddhartha finally snuck out of his father's kingdom and for the first time ever started seeing sick people.
Yep.
He saw people in misery, misery because of illness, misery because of leprosy, misery because of hunger, etc., etc., etc. And he thought to himself, I'm going to be king of this land soon. What good am I if I can't stop this suffering? So obviously, for a little while, he went around and looked at all the different ways you could stop misery and stop suffering and stop disease. And of course, you can't. That's just the nature of matter. Matter falls apart consistently, constantly. So you can't do that. So Siddhartha went into other ways. How can I get my people out of misery? How can I get my people out of the suffering of their disease and their leprosies and all of the rest of that? And of course, he came to the point where you can reach a state of mind where misery doesn't bother you. You can reach a state of mind where your suffering doesn't bother you. You don't get rid of the suffering. You just start to realize that you don't have to respond to it. You see, same as being offended. No one can offend you. It's not possible for anyone to offend you. Someone can throw a noise at you, a grunt from their mouth, and if you don't like that grunt, you'll become offended. Who did that? You or them? You did that. You can only offend yourself. It's not possible to be offended by anyone else. And in the same way, you can, if you have a pain, this is, I can only go from this is what it's like because I learned, this is one of the first things that I was taught and one of the first things I learned because I was in a lot of pain when I arrived in the monasteries. If you're truly in the moment and you're not allowing your thoughts to respond to the life you're living, in that moment you will see a tree and a dog and the clouds and the wind blowing and pain in your arm and a cat over there. It's just something else you're aware of. The pain. You don't have to respond to it. So in deep meditation, when you're training and you're training yourself to be immovable within yourself, you'll sit in the middle of your mind. Your thoughts will go on around you. Your feelings and emotions will be in there with you. But what you stop doing is jumping into the emotion, jumping into the thought process, jumping into the pain. You're not doing that anymore. You're just looking at it and you just don't respond. You learn not to respond. At that point, you are absolutely free and above all things. You are free. Free from misery, free from self. You're still there. You still feel the pain like everybody else, but you don't respond to it. You don't try and get away from it. I can give you a for instance if we have the time where it actually happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Very, very long story made very, very short. I was walking out of Tibet. I was on my way to see the Dalai Lama with my teacher. My teacher at the time was talking about love on the way. And he said to me, he didn't call me GM back then. I wasn't a GM back then. I was just a wolf. So he said, little wolf, you seem to be having a lot of trouble focusing. What's the matter? What's the problem? And I said, well, I don't know if you know it or not, but I've been seriously cut with a sword and I've got a very large wound on my arm. It's gone down to the bone. It's been stitched up, but it hurts. He goes, oh, can you describe it to me? And I said, yeah, it hurts like hell. So he slapped me across the head and he said, that's just, hurt is another word for pain. Don't be stupid. Get out of your thoughts and tell me what you're feeling. So I went, okay. I'm feeling there's a very deep sharpness to it. Because that's because the nerve endings are raw because they've been cut and the myelin isn't around the ends at the moment, the insulation. So that's obvious. What else do you feel? I said, okay, it's throbbing, a real deep throbbing, and I'd like to stop that. And he goes, well, you'd have to stop your heart for that because that's what you're feeling is your heartbeat. Once again, your nerve endings are so raw, you're very sensitive to these feelings. And then he goes, what else? And I said, well, there's a lot of heat, but I know what you're going to say, so forget that. He goes, okay, so are you still feeling your pain? And I thought, no. Well, yes, but no. The sharpness is there, the heat is there, the pulsing is there. And he said, so what was the problem? And I said, I was trying to get away from it, and I couldn't.
That's a great story.
Well, I cried for
That's
3 days because that was a big realization for me, and I've
it's.
it's never bothered me since. I've
I
had
mean,
cancer.
the
You go.
reason I say it's a great story. Well, I was just going to say. I mean, there's one thing having the realization for that. There's one thing being able to put that into practice. Because honestly, when you explain it, yeah, I mean, understanding that gap, I suppose, if you want to call it that, between the pain and the clinging to the pain, or the realization of the pain, for me, that concept, I think, anyone who's meditated will start to understand as they reflect on actually just sitting in a retreat for hours. You start to anyway have to do that. But then when you try and take that into everyday life, it is so difficult to kind of bring yourself back there. And I mean, as a question of advice, I mean, how do you put that into practice? Is it just the knowing of how to do that? Because certainly I can't stand physical pain personally. Who does like physical pain? But
I
yeah.
do. I've got my own dominatrix back there somewhere.
Oh
Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Anyway,
well, we'll get kicked off YouTube now. But anyway, not at all.
no, we won't.
I know, certainly not. But anyway,
Did you ask
yeah.
me something then?
No, I
How do you
didn't.
do it?
I was asking you basically. Yeah, I mean, how do people put that into practice? It's very easy to explain, and it's almost easy to understand in low level pain. But yeah, maybe it's as simple as you just got to do it. I don't know. But that was the
It is.
question. Yeah. Really?
Yeah, yeah. Do you want me to tell you how, real
Yeah.
quick?
No, go for it.
All right, you start where it's a deep end thing. You throw yourself in the deep end. So what happens is you go inside, you close your eyes, you relax your body, and you sit there for a while and just watch what goes on in your brain. Just watch it. And watch what you're aware of, but don't move towards what you're aware of. Always remember you are awareness. You are not what you are aware of. You are the awareness of those things. So you go in, you sit down, and you'll notice that you've got thoughts going on in there, chattering. That's the brain, of course. Your brain will constantly be pretending to be you, so it'll sound like you're talking to yourself in there. You'll close your eyes and you go, oh, okay, this is a little bit difficult. That actually wasn't you. If you sit back and watch yourself saying that, what are you that just watched yourself saying that? And what is yourself that said it that you are being aware of? I'm going too far the wrong way here. So you're sitting in there, the middle of your mind, thoughts are going on. Train yourself not to bother about the thoughts. Let them think. Don't worry about what they're thinking. Just let them think and pay no attention. Don't respond to them. This is really difficult in the beginning. When you get good at that, you'll also notice that your body will start to ache in certain positions. An itch will come on your nose. Your body's inside your ego is going to go, oh, I've got to scratch this bloody itch. Don't. Let it itch. Why do you need to scratch it? Feel the itch. Allow it to itch. The ego is just wanting to scratch it. Watch the ego wanting to scratch it. Don't play into it. Don't do anything. Just watch it. And eventually you'll sit there after maybe a month, you'll sit there in the middle of your mind, your thoughts will be going on, your feelings will be going on, your aches and pains will be going on, but you will have trained yourself to be totally unmoved, totally unbothered, like the eye of a storm. All the destruction going around of the eye of the storm, but in the eye of the storm is probably the safest place in the world. Warm, quiet, serene, untouchable. That's where you sit. When you can do that in here, this is the hardest place to do it, because it doesn't matter where you go in the world, you're taking this with you. You can't get away from it. Once you've done that and none of this in here touches you anymore, no pain, problems, nothing bothers you anymore, you'll still deal with it all, but you'll deal with it with a beautiful, clean mind. Issues in life that have to be dealt with have to be dealt with. You can either deal with it with a miserable mind, or you can deal with it with a calm mind. It doesn't matter which, you have to deal with it anyway. So a normal, logical person would go, well, I'm going to do it with a calm mind. Screw the other shit. Why make it harder for myself? So you learn not to be moved, not to be touched, to be an absolute free master in your own mind. And then in the outer world, nothing matches this shit in here. Nothing out here will bother you. You'll see someone, a horrible accident. Everyone's running around like dickheads. Ah! You're feeling the same things they are. You're seeing the same things they are. But you're the only one that's standing there calm, quiet, very, very, very focused, and you're looking at what's to be done for the best of everyone concerned right now. You'll be the only one doing that, unless there's a bunch of other meditators in there that are just as good, of course. So the same shit's happening. Everyone else is in misery. You're not in misery, but it doesn't mean you're not going to help. Out of pure love, you're going to be there doing the best you can, putting your own life at risk, helping these other people. And you'll be so calm, so full of energy, just looking at a person will relax them. And that's how you do it. It's difficult in the beginning. It's easy to understand, but eventually you will do it.
Cool. From suffering to awakening, I think we did it. And thank you. I think if anyone has questions on that, please put them in the comments. And one more thing before we knock this subject off, I wanted to mention something that just has been in my head ever since you were talking about your journey. And you were talking for a minute about how other people can hurt you, how people get offended, these other things so not the physical pain, but we seem to have somewhat of an abundance of that in the world now for some reason, of people just being way too easily kind of hurt by things. But I remember I remembered a book that was such a great book that I read years ago, and it was called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business, which I think was such a great title for a book, because it kind of, for me, the reason it was in my head is because you were kind of conveying that in the story that you were telling. So, but yeah, you were going to say something. Sorry, I think reacting to me saying.
No, I was just thinking. I thought you were going to go down the political correctness route.
No, we could do a whole other pod on that, but it's I don't want to. We may derail the. I think we answered this one well, and yeah, it's let's leave that subject for another day. No, I just wanted to bring that book up because it was in my head as you were talking.
Well, hopefully a few people might pick that up as well. Wonderful, beautiful book.
Cool, awesome, GM. It's good as always, and I look forward to the next one.
Oh, me too, my friend. I absolutely love these. Okay, see you everyone. Thank you for listening. Love you all. Ciao.
Cheers. This is 1095.